Hi everyone, how are you guys doing? My name is Raja and welcome to another episode of Filmcast. Joining us today, we have the great, the amazing Chief Creative Director here at Nixer Productions, Ayan Mir. How are you doing, Ayan?
I'm doing great, Raja. How are you doing how's everything going?
Well, it's pretty hot, and I'm pretty sure we discussed that the past minute,
Yep.
but it's definitely really hot here. Joining Ayan, we have more of our volunteers, more of our great volunteers here at Productions. We've got Ashna Yasin and Khabar Mahmood Awan. How are both of you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
That's great.
I'm doing good as well.
That's amazing. Right. So for those of you guys, again, I've said it the past episodes, but those of you guys who've been following our marketing, you would definitely know what the topic for this podcast episode is. But those of you who don't, we're discussing Mr. Ayan Mir's childhood what do you call it? Fandom. Yes,
Yes.
his childhood fandom. DC. All of the Batman, Superman, Justice League, Flash, all of those great characters who sadly haven't had the best run on the cinema screens. Now, Ayan, you being one big fanboy for DC, this is how you're going to be portrayed throughout the podcast.
Okay.
But you being a great fanboy, what are your thoughts on DC in general when it comes to the cinematic screen or the cinemas, basically?
I really like what they've done so far. I think for me personally, I really enjoy it, but just because of how much diversity we have with how many types of movies we can get from just one company, one studio. Like we have dark movies, we have light movies, we have all kinds of stuff here, and I really appreciate that. As someone who really like wants to become a filmmaker of his own, I appreciate that we can get so many different visions.
Yeah. Okay, that's right. That's really correct when it comes to, I guess, Warner Brothers and DC. That's one thing you lack because I'm a Marvel fanboy and I'm pretty sure Ashna also likes Marvel compared to.
Yes.
Yep. So, and clearly every Marvel movie or most of the Marvel movies, they're not dark. They're more of comics in real life, and it's not exactly dark. But yeah, I get where you're coming from, Ayan, and I definitely one reason why I like DC's movies is because of the dark or the R-rated factor in them at times. For example, in 2019, we saw the movie Joker, and it was my personal favorite for that year. Joker, it was an amazing movie. And Carver, have you
Yeah.
seen Joker?
Oh yeah, I've seen Joker. It's phenomenal. I mean, it's really great. And I like one thing about DC is doing that they're giving their villains their own movie. I mean, that's great. You can get to know what their origin story is instead of like just wondering, oh, where did he came from? Like, how did he become a villain? I mean, that's pretty
Yeah,
good. Like Marvel should also like
yeah,
look into that. That is something that DC absolutely stands out on, and I love that fact. We're also expecting a Black
definitely.
Adam
And
movie in the future.
a Black Adam. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I forgot. Speculations for Dwayne Johnson. I think he denied
yeah.
them or something.
No, 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 no.
But
Dwayne Johnson
yeah,
is confirmed. He's been Black Adam.
confirmed.
He
Yeah.
is Black
But
Adam.
but but
Yeah.
oh, okay, okay. That's a
He's
Let's
major
see how
Yeah,
announcement.
Dwayne
he was cast as Black Adam back in 2012, I believe, and he's been Black Adam ever since then. So that movie has been in development for that long. So yeah.
Yeah, but if anyone knows who Boss Logic is, he's a really famous artist who does concept arts and stuff related to that field,
Yeah, yeah.
basically graphic design. And he was the one to showcase The Rock as a Black Adam,
Yeah.
and that's where all the speculations began. And then, as Ayan mentioned, that was my bad, but he actually the role was confirmed. Now, guys, moving forward, we all remember the Dark Knight trilogy,
Yep.
possibly the best DC trilogy. I mean, DC doesn't have a trilogy down, does it? But possibly the best series, in my opinion, or series of films that DC has released under the Batman series. So I just wanted all of you guys' opinion on the Dark Knight trilogy. And do you guys think that it was the best Batman trilogy, or do you think that the previous ones, or even the TV one, or the TV Batman, So like the Gotham ones. Do you think they're better?
All right, so who's gonna go first?
Okay, I'll
Yeah,
go. I'll go first.
yeah, go for it, Kaveh.
So I haven't watched Batman the Gotham TV series much, but I have watched the Batman trilogy, and the one thing I liked about it that all the three movies they do have a connection. I mean, you're seeing the
Yeah,
villain connection coming from the first movie to the third movie, and then that Harvey Dent situation continuing into the third movie, and it was like all the three movies were connected. You cannot say that this thing was not connected with that. I mean, all the three movies they had a connection with them, and I don't remember the actor's name. I'm really bad at casting. Like I don't remember the cast name. What was the actor's name? The one who played Batman?
uh, it was Christian Bale, right?
Yep,
Yeah, he was
Christian
good.
Bale's acting was
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
really bad at cast names. So don't expect me anything. Don't expect anything from me. Okay.
Right. So the Dark Knight trilogy again, like amazing trilogy, and we have had a new Batman movie confirmed, and I think Ayan, your favorite Batman was Ben Affleck. Uh,
I mean,
Ben Affleck's
I
Batman.
think there's a lot of context needed for that. Like, I feel like Ben Affleck had the most potential, but I don't think he reached that potential. I think if you're just talking in terms of character and stuff, Christian Bale is the best. But if you're talking about
Agreed.
who had the most potential to become the best Batman, it's without a doubt Ben Affleck, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, he definitely had the potential,
Yeah,
but of course, with how DC is, some stuff went wrong, and hence Ben Affleck
yeah.
is yeah. So Ben Affleck's been replaced by the former star of Twilight, Robert Pattinson, I believe his name
I think,
Yes,
is, and
yes, that's the name.
is he? Yeah. So, what do you guys think of him being the next Batman? And Ashna, I know you're not keen on DC, but I mean, Batman's been part of the mainstream. So, if you've watched any of the Batman movies and comparing them to Robert Pattinson, do you think that he'll do a good job and probably persuade you to watching more DC?
Of course he will. I love Robert's movies. I've watched them. I've been standing him religiously.
Oh,
So I think that might be something that can make me move towards DC more, I
I
guess.
mean,
yeah. The Stan accounts will definitely be watching him in the
yeah.
next Batman
Yeah.
movie, but
One thing I'd like to add is that you are doing a huge disservice to him by introducing him as the star of the Twilight movies. He's done so many really, really good movies ever since Twilight.
I'm really sorry for that, but that's how I know him personally.
Okay, that's
Um,
fair. That's fair.
yeah, yeah, because all I ever saw was I haven't even seen the Twilight movies. It's just that I've seen his face everywhere related to the Twilight movies, which was my first guess, and I apologize for that, Mr. Ayan. Moving on, we have another Ashna, I have a question specifically for you, as you mentioned, and I'm going to keep bringing it back that you are not a DC fan, which is understandable. But is there a reason for you not being that interested in DC compared to Marvel, or is it just personally you find Marvel more suitable to your personal liking?
There is a reason, and that's because, like, at first, DC confirmed, and they were adamant on their statement that their movies are not going to be R-rated. But then we get to see movies like Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey, right? So that kind of sort of shifted my attention because DC is more of like audience. Like now, it's not really for audience below 13 or
Yeah,
somewhat like that, but like now the R-rated movies, you can Joker is an example, right? They're too violent, and I'm not really induced by violent. I don't like violent. Marvel somewhat has happy endings to it,
yeah, okay, yes, I
some
agree to
part of
that.
it.
The reason Marvel has that happy ending factor is because it's owned by Disney, or the studio is owned by Disney, and I personally don't like that. I think that there is a barrier holding the directors and Kevin Feige himself from actually taking Marvel to a potential. But coming back to your statement, I agree. And to your violent part, I think by violence you mean that DC portrays it too dark compared to Marvel, because in Marvel movies, what you usually see is uh, a lot of heroes winning. You don't see heroes losing, or you don't see literal type of violence. So, for example, Joker, it portrayed a man's battle against his mental health, and that was a good message. And may I add, Joaquin Phoenix's acting was the cherry on the top. He deserved winning that Academy Award, and so yeah, I think Joker was definitely my personal favorite. And let's come to an underrated film, or I believe it's underrated, which is Suicide Squad. Now, people have very mixed opinions about Suicide Squad, and apparently there is also a cut or a director's cut of Suicide Squad, which had given Jared Leto more screen time, and people wanted that, but of course, some issues happen, just like they've been happening with DC. There's something with DC and directors, man. You've seen Justice League and how there was a Snyder cut, and they're finally getting it. Coming on that, actually, that's yeah. So Ayan, I know you have a good or a better understanding of what the Snyder cut is, and for anyone watching, Snyder cut is basically the director, the original director of the Justice League films, Zack Snyder, his perspective,
Version.
or
You can say
basically
his
the way
version,
he
his
wanted the
version.
film to be released.
Yeah.
So Ayan, do you think the Snyder Cut will be significantly different compared to the way Justice League was released prior?
Well, I cannot say for sure, but I can tell you what many, because I follow insiders, people who have this kind of insight into how the Hollywood business works and stuff, right? I follow these people.
Yeah.
So most of them, what they're saying is that yes, it is a completely different movie. It has a completely different script, different storyboards, different scenes, everything. Basically for those who don't know what exactly the Snyder Cut is, during the direction process for Justice League, Zack Snyder had to step down from the project. There was a lot of behind the scenes drama there. After Batman v Superman's critical reception, the executives at Warner Brothers got cold feet and they were like, we don't want this version of the Justice League. So they told Zack Snyder to step down. They used his daughter's suicide as as a cover for it, and so on and so forth. I won't get into that. But basically, the gist of it is they brought in Joss Whedon, who they had seen had success with Avengers, and they told him to make a completely different movie that they would then release. And this was made under very hurried circumstances, and they were very expensive reshoots. So we ended up getting a completely different movie to what we were promised we would get. So
Ah,
there's that.
right. Okay. So another DC film. We're discussing just how DC films have panned out, and we're coming on to Aquaman. Now, I watched Aquaman in the theaters, and I personally liked the film.
Yeah.
Of course, Jason, I forgot his last name.
Momoa.
Jason Momoa, yeah, Jason Momoa. His acting was really good. The CGI was not overdone, which was again really good. And I personally like the Aquaman film. And Ashna, I wanted to know if you have watched the Aquaman film.
I haven't actually.
Oh, that's sort of surprising. But moving on, cover, I suppose you have
Yes,
watched
I
the
also
Aquaman.
watched it in the theater. I mean, it was good. I mean, after such a like after Justice League, I wasn't expecting that much of a film that they gave. I mean, they gave a good history
Yeah,
about
same.
Aquaman and his brother. I mean, it was like after if you compare to Justice League is nothing in front of Aquaman. I mean, that was phenomenal if you compare it to Justice League. I
I
mean,
agree.
it was a
Yeah, I
very good
think
storyline.
DC's finally realizing their mistakes and what they've made, and Warner Brothers as well. And I think we're starting to see the benefit of them realizing their mistake. Now, guys, before we end the podcast, I have a question I would like all of you to briefly answer, starting with Ashna. Do you think that you'll be more well, I've sort of asked you the question, so I'm going to rephrase it for you. But do you think that DC has a better future in establishing a proper universe like Marvel?
I think yes. To a certain extent, yes, I agree.
All right. Ayan, so same question for you. Do you think that DC will forget its past and actually have a proper universe? Do you think they're aiming for that, or do you have something different that you believe will be the case?
I think what Warner Brothers are doing with DC right now is something that is very different to Marvel. It's never going to be the same as Marvel because that's just not the way
Yeah.
Warner Brothers are as a studio. I think it's going to be more
Okay.
director driven because currently what we're seeing is we have one director in charge of Batman, we have one director in charge of the Flash section, one in charge of Wonder Woman, and so on and so forth. So you have all these different corners of the DC universe, and there's one person in charge of those. Instead of having one Kevin Feige figure controlling everything, they have different people controlling different corners of it, which will,
Yeah, but
yeah,
when it comes to sorry to interrupt you, Ayan,
yeah,
but
yeah.
when it comes to merging them and forming the Justice League and then having another movie on that, probably, won't you think there will
Yeah,
be
I mean,
creative differences?
creative differences are definitely possible, but then again, those are possible in those corners alone because it's not just the director, right? It's the entire crew,
Yeah, you've
which,
got the script right.
yeah,
Yeah,
and when you completely focus on these crews, it's like hundreds and hundreds of people on these big movies. So creative differences are something they
yeah.
have to iron out all the time. So that shouldn't really be an issue.
Right. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. Although I would agree with the Kevin Feige strategy more, just because once you have one person overlooking everything and he's passionate about what he does is kind of more secure in my opinion. Like of course every director is gonna direct their own film, but then you've got Kevin Feige overlooking everything as the executive producer, making sure that the vision they have for the whole phase it doesn't get lost. But that's just me and my inner Marvel fanboy. Right, moving to you, Carver, and we're
Yeah.
going to end this amazing episode.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that DC can establish a cultural phenomenon as what Marvel did? Because DC is mainstream, we cannot argue it isn't. But we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about
I
hitting.
like to say that DC is about to do something which Marvel fans urge Marvel to do, and that was to like make a crossover of the Marvel seasons and the Marvel films. We saw Ezra Miller appear in the Crisis of Infinite Earths crossover for like I don't know a 5 minute cameo, and now there's also speculation that we might see Grant Gustin now appear in the Flash film, and who knows, maybe we might see the whole the Arrowverse and the DCEU come together for like one big film. Who knows? We might see them because it's a
Yeah,
possibility. Marvel never did that. Although their timeline or universe with the shows and the movies they were the same. If I mean, and they never did that.
yeah,
That was something which Marvel fans wanted for a long time, but they never did that. DC might do it.
yeah. Right, that's fair. Right, this has been a great episode. I have enjoyed this a lot. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you, Ayan, Ashna, and Koram. I hope you guys had a
However,
good,
you
fruitful discussion
Yeah, it
and
was
fun on your end
very
as well.
nice talking to you guys and
Right,
hearing you.
yeah. So
yeah.
we're gonna
Thank
end.
you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We're gonna end the episode here, and thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Raja, and I am signing out with Ashna, Ayan, and Koram.